PEDC presents. Tonight we're having a discussion with Mike Kozlosky of the Wilmington Metropolitan Planning Organization and Amy Beatty from the city of Wilmington. Mike's going to speak to us about the Collector Street plan here in Wilmington. Amy's going to speak about the Greenway initiative. Before we get underway with Mike and Amy, I wanted to introduce our organization to you in the event that you have not been to one of these before. We are the Cape Fear Economic Development Council. We are geared at taking a leadership role in promoting job growth and sustainable economy here in the lower Cape Fear region. We do have a sign-up sheet that is circulating around the room. We'd love if you signed up to join our mailing list. Also, stay in the loop for our later events. We will have a July event. Other than that, we hope that you enjoy yourself tonight, and hope that you are interested in the discussion. I will say this, because of the format, we're going to start talking about the collector streets, and we're going to talk about the greenways, if we can. Hold all questions until the end. It would be much appreciated. And then, last thing, I have to send all of you to our website. So, www.capefearedc.org is our website for any future events, information about our group that you'd like to hear. Okay? Without further ado, I will turn it over to Mr. Mike Kozlosky, the Wilmington Metropolitan Planning Organization.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you.
I am Mike Kozlosky. I'm the Executive Director of the Wilmington Metropolitan Planning Organization. For those of you that don't know, we conduct transportation planning for a 480 square mile area that includes all of New Hanover County, a large portion of Brunswick County, as well as the Hampstead area of Pender County. I have a board that's comprised of 13 elected officials from throughout the region. Councilwoman Laura Padgett is here and is in the back. She is the chair of the Transportation Advisory Committee. I appreciate the opportunity to come and present on the Collector Street plan. I know I've probably seen many of you at several other meetings. I'm going to provide just an overview of the plan to indicate where we're at in the development of the plan, and then as Mark mentioned, after I'm done and both Amy and I present on the Greenway plan, which is a separate planning effort, then I'll be happy to take any questions that you may have. For those who don't know, there's three types of roadways that we consider. One is the arterial, which are your major roadways, like College Road, Oleander Drive. Then you have your collector streets that collect traffic throughout the neighborhood, and those are like Wrightsville Avenue and some lower volume streets. And then you have your local streets, which are your neighborhood streets. The last collector street plan that was developed in the community was done in 1992. So the MPO desired to update the collector street plan for the city of Wilmington. You ask, what are collector streets? Collector streets connect people together. They allow people to get throughout the community and allow emergency response vehicles to access neighborhoods in this community. This illustration demonstrates a disconnected neighborhood. You see many cul-de-sacs, lack of connectivity. This is a well-connected neighborhood that demonstrates what we believe Wilmington needs to achieve. Some of the characteristics of the collector streets, they're a maximum length of 2 miles long. They're long enough to connect neighborhoods, parks, schools, shopping, and other destinations. They're typically 2 lanes in width, and in some locations they have a center turn lane. Parking, there's on-street parking that's often permitted in the design considerations. The volumes are usually 1,000 to 5,000 cars a day in residential neighborhoods, and in commercial areas they can be up to 12,000 vehicles per day. The speed limit is typically around ranges from 15 to 35 miles per hour. And they provide gateways into communities. The goal of the Collector Street Plan was to provide a framework for future street upgrades such as sidewalks, bike lanes, street trees, and innovative stormwater features. This is a Collector Street Plan, and I don't know if many of you are familiar, but the NCDOT recently adopted a policy back in 2009 that was a complete streets policy. And they're coming up with design guidelines as we speak to incorporate the complete street effort. These features that are identified in this goal are included in the Complete Streets Initiative. And there's a movement across the country to incorporate Complete Streets ideas into the design of the street network. Another goal of this Collector Street Plan is to promote neighborhood residents with transportation routes and options to reduce reliance on your major arterials. We hear time and time again that there's a traffic problem in Wilmington. And so, based on those comments, we identified the need for improved interconnectivity between adjacent neighborhoods to reduce the reliance on these major arterials. And so we have one of two options. Basically, you can try to widen your existing large arterial roadways, or you can try to promote this interconnectivity and these improved street designs to help reduce congestion in the major arterials. What this Collector Street Plan is it's a high-level policy document. It's not fiscally constrained. This plan is not going to happen overnight. We will use this plan as the city or the state look at resurfacing projects and how do we incorporate some of those design elements into this Collector Street network. We have been out and held 2 open houses, one in October, in which we had 31 people come out, and that was held at the Wilmington City Council Chamber. There was a second one that was held in February. We did have a public comment period. That public comment period closed on February 29th. We do have a steering committee that's comprised of representatives from throughout the community. As I mentioned, we did receive public comment. We are reviewing all of those comments and we'll be making revisions to the draft plan. We will also be reaching out for a third round of public input as part of this process. And once we've reached out to the community, we'll develop a preliminary cost estimates, then we'll present the plan to our Planning Commission and City Council. What do collector streets do? Well-designed collector streets help to provide direct accesses to businesses and homes. They help to reduce response times for emergency response vehicles. They allow people to walk, bike, and use public transportation in the community. They connect businesses and neighborhoods, and they help to create safer, healthier places that help to reduce the tax burden by deferring or avoiding widening at those major arterial and intersection improvements. The design, it's important to build beautiful streets because we want to ensure that the enhanced quality of the street is maintained with the street trees, the bicycle lanes, the sidewalks, the medians, and sometimes the on-street parking. This is the map that demonstrates the locations of these collector streets, whether that be residential or commercial in nature. These are the recommendations. The proposed cross-sections, as you can see, as I mentioned, the Complete Streets Initiative includes trying to promote bicycling, walking, and public transportation. So the cross-sections include recommendations for sidewalks, street trees, bicycle lanes, 10 to 11-foot lane widths and then also ones that have the center two-way left turn lane or the median. The next steps in the development of the collector street plan is that The consultant, staff, and the steering committee will review the comments that we've received to date and determine changes necessary. The draft plan will be revised based on those comments that we did receive. As I mentioned, we have discussed this with the Transportation Advisory Committee, and what they have requested staff do is conduct some additional outreach with the community based on those revisions. What we've been asked to do is hold a community-wide public meeting, go out to the area of Sunset Park, College Acres, and the South Oleander neighborhoods to provide you with those modifications that we have identified as part of this planning effort. With that, that is the end of my presentation. What we'd like to talk about now, which is a separate plan, is the comprehensive Greenway plan. And what I'm going to do is turn it over to Amy Beatty, who is our recreation superintendent, and she'll provide an overview.
Here tonight to present on the Wilmington and New Hanover County Comprehensive Greenway Plan. I am going to bring Mike back up here. This is actually an initiative of the WMPO, the Wilmington Metropolitan Planning Organization, in partnership with the City of Wilmington and New Hanover County. So it was a collaborative effort. And for those of you who were hoping that I would let you in right away on what a Greenway is, in case you don't know, I will take care of that right now. A Greenway is a corridor of open space that lends itself to connecting people and places. It most often has bicycle and pedestrian facilities on it, so in other words, paths or trails, but not in every case. Sometimes they are just open space preservation corridors. In Wilmington, probably there are two most familiar greenways to most of you. One is the Shell Cross City Trail, which is still under construction. It is a bicycle and pedestrian path that we are constructing from Wade Park in South Wilmington throughout the city, and it will end at the Wrightsville Beach drawbridge. And we have to date completed 11 of those 15 miles. Primarily, they are on Eastwood Road, Independence Boulevard, 17th Street Extension, and Museum Drive. If you can conjure up those areas in your mind for those of you who have not used the trail. And another one that not always springs to mind that we actually discussed a little bit in last month's CFEDC meeting in our Riverfront Visioning session is the Riverwalk downtown, which is also considered a greenway. Tonight we're going to provide you just with an overview of the plan, talk about the principles behind the plan, the scope of work, and provide you with a summary. This process began in January of this year when we hired our consultant, Greenways. They're a nationally recognized group who actually works internationally, completing these types of plans. They've completed over 30 Greenway bicycle and pedestrian plans in North Carolina. We are actually, interestingly, the last major metropolitan area in the state of North Carolina to complete a Greenway plan. But we joke, and we like to tell everyone that ours is going to be the best because we're going to learn from everyone else's mistakes. The project team has two sub-consultants, Biohabitats and Sage Design, which is a local firm here headed up by Sarah Burroughs, landscape architect. These are the principles behind the plan that you can see on the slide in front of you. Our guiding concepts are transportation. How do we make basic transportation alternatives such as walking and biking safer and more convenient choices for our citizens and visitors in Wilmington and New Hanover County? Recreation, we see a great deal of recreational use with both the Riverwalk and the Cross City Trail. People just getting out and enjoying our natural resources, maybe teaching I've witnessed people teaching their kids how to ride a bike on the Cross City Trail, which sort of offers a safer environment for doing that. Connectivity is a major concept behind this plan, and one of the things that we're really asking people to tell us what they want to see connected is that park to park, park to school, residents, neighborhoods to schools, schools to parks, residences to business. So we want to hear that from our citizens. Economic vitality is another guiding principle. There's a growing body of studies that indicate that these types of amenities improve quality of life and can do things like raise property values, can spur redevelopment and revitalization. We've actually seen that firsthand. We have tried to visit many cities in North and South Carolina who have more advanced greenway systems than Wilmington does to learn from what they have learned throughout their process. And we've seen firsthand some of the redevelopment initiatives. One of them in Greenville, South Carolina, they have an agreement called the Swamp Rabbit Trail, which is ultimately a 17-mile-long trail. It's called Swamp Rabbit Trail because it's on an old rail corridor, and that train was a Swamp Rabbit train. It hopped through the swamps in that area. And they, with that Greenway, have actually seen one area that goes through a blighted area of Greenville, and during the planning process, a developer had actually purchased an old textile building and has converted that into a grocery and cafe. And in the planning process, they actually redesigned the alignment of the trail so that instead of running behind that business, it runs in front of that business. And they see a lot of foot traffic, a lot of business from that trail. It also runs through a little town called Travelers Rest, South Carolina. And we've spoken with leaders in that town who say that it has really helped save their town, and they are rebranding themselves as an outdoor recreation area, destination in that area of South Carolina. Conservation is another guiding principle. As I said before, most of these will have paths on them, but not always. Sometimes they will just be preserved for open space or for habitat preservation. And you might imagine those as being more in the outlying unincorporated areas of New Hanover County. Healthy living is another important principle. We want to see folks be able to use these facilities for exercise, particularly in places where people might not otherwise get the opportunity to exercise. We've also seen a lot of funding opportunities, particularly recently, come from the healthcare industry for these types of facilities. And there's growing studies that show a return on investment on the positive health impact on the community that have these types of facilities. And lastly, community building is important as well, which I've seen myself and heard just anecdotally as we continue construction of the Crossing Trail and we get more of these sections built. In particular, when we just completed the section behind UNCW and through College Acres, and we saw people getting out and using these trails, and they've said, you know, we get out and go on the trail after dinner, and we're seeing our neighbors and, you know, having a conversation with them, where before that didn't necessarily happen, so these can be a tool for that. The approach of our plan was to hold a kickoff meeting, which we did in January, identify opportunities and constraints. We began a public involvement period in February, and that wraps up, our first comment period actually wraps up June 30th at the end of this month. We'll end up with a draft plan and review that we'll take back out to the community and end up with a final plan and presentation, and we'll get a final report, which we will take to City Council, the county commissioners, and the beach towns, and ask them to adopt the plan. At our kickoff meeting, our steering committee convened. It's a diverse and large steering committee. It has over 30 individuals on it, representing entities like NCDOT and the Cape Fear Public Utility Authority, which will be important partners when it comes to constructing these trails. Oftentimes they'll be on utility easements, and we'll also need to partner with DOT. We have UNCW, New Hanover County Schools, and Cape Fear Community College. We have a developer. We have the Chamber of Commerce. We have advocacy groups such as Cape Fear Cyclists as well. Because we want to get as much public input and perspective on this plan as possible. We confirmed our vision and goals at that meeting and reviewed existing plans and programs, and then actually got out some maps and started drawing on them. In the opportunities and constraints period, our consultant reviewed existing plans such as plans from the MPO, existing pedestrian plans, existing city and county recreation, parks and open space plans. I'm just happy it's not mine, because more often than not it is me. Along with staff put and then GIS mapping, which is done at an aerial level, and then going out, our consultant sort of boots on the grounds and actually reaffirming what they've seen on those maps. With that, they identify what opportunities we have out there and then where we are limited. Our public involvement period, which again I said began in February, it was a multi-layered approach, and we were very cognizant with this plan. We did not want to, a lot of times with plans, you'll go out and you'll have your public workshops, and you go back and you do your work with a consultant, and you sort of disappear from public view for a while, even though there's a lot of work going on behind the scenes before you go back out to the public again. And we didn't want to do that, in part because Greenways are sort of a new concept for people, and so we thought that there was probably an awareness and an education effort that was needed there. So we developed a communication plan to go along with that, and as part of that, Mike and I guess we've had over 50 combined stakeholder meetings, public presentations, and then just being at community events like races, farmers market, other community events where we can go out and explain to people, what we're trying to do with this plan. We have a website, WilmingtonGreenway.com, and on that website you can keep up to date with the schedule of the plan, find out more details about the plan. We have some contact information on there that lets people know that we would love to go out to any business, community group, or we're trying to network as much as possible. So if you if you're a part of other groups that you feel it would be beneficial for us to come out and deliver the same presentation, we want to do that. There's an online input map on the website, and again, this is this public comment period is going to be ending June 30th, so just a couple more days to have this opportunity. But this is an innovative tool that actually allows people to go on a map, identify your origin and your destination, and then tell us the route that you would like to take to get there. And then our consultant compiles that information, and that will be as part of the final plan. There's also an online comment form, which is the same form that you found in your seats tonight. We desire a lot of public input on this plan, and our consultant at the beginning of this plan projected for us that we would receive about 300 public comment forms. We didn't think that that would be representative enough of our area, and we asked him to revisit his estimate, and we actually asked him what's the most comments you've ever received from what your plans you've done nationally, and the answer was Bozeman, Montana. They got 3,059. So we set our goal at 3,060. We're a little bit competitive, but in addition to just identifying an arbitrary number, it meant a lot to us to educate the public on Greenways, to provide an awareness of what these can do for your community, and then let you all decide if you want these, because it will take individual participation. A plan of this size, with this kind of vision, with this kind of network that we think needs to be established, can't be done just at the governmental level. It has to be done also at the individual participation level. So we felt if we got out there and educated people enough and made them aware enough that if they wanted these, then they would be able to voice that opinion to the decision makers and then be able to make this happen. So in other words, we didn't want to just do this plan and have it end up on the shelf. We, I think, got our tally yesterday that we're up to 3,485, so hopefully y'all can put us over the edge tonight over 3,500 of those comment forms. Thus far in the presentation, I've talked about sort of the input process, and Mike is going to take over from here and share with you what the output will look like.
Thank you, Amy. Amy developed or discussed the process that we're going through in order to develop this comprehensive Greenway plan. This plan is very important for us as we move forward in this community. Some people would ask, why are you preparing a comprehensive Greenway plan? Well, what it does is it provides us a map that demonstrates the blueprint and foundation for this effort, but it also provides us a funding mechanism. We can go to funding agencies and try to secure funds to implement this vision. I use the analogy of two businessmen going into a bank and trying to get a loan. One businessman has a business plan, the other doesn't. The bank's more likely to give the guy with the business plan a loan than the guy without. And it's the same way when we go to some of these granting agencies. It's important that we have this plan in place and it's adopted by the city and the county and the Transportation Advisory Committee so that it helps us to acquire these funds necessary to implement this vision. The Greenway plan will provide a map that demonstrates the locations of these facilities in the community. You ask, well, why is that important? It's important as we work with the City of Wilmington, as we work with the North Carolina Department of Transportation, as we work with the Cape Fear Public Utility Authority. As they build some of these projects, they'll refer to this plan to see if these facilities are included on this map. If they're included on the map, then with the city and NCDOT, they try to incorporate those efforts into their design. So it's a lot easier to get a Greenway into a DOT project if it's on this plan and on this map than if it's not. This map also helps our local land use planners as development proposals come in. It helps to identify which side of the street these Greenway facilities should be located. So this will provide a comprehensive map that identifies where these Greenway facilities are appropriate for the future. The plan will include design guidelines. In some areas, like the unincorporated area of the county, an appropriate design for a facility in that area may be crushed stone or rock. In the city of Wilmington, it may be asphalt, much like the Gary Shell Cross City Trail. And so this plan will provide recommendations for those types of designs. And I guess it's important to also point out, back on the map, that it's called the Comprehensive Greenway Plan, but we're also looking at blueways. For those that don't know what a blueway is, it's a paddle trail. We do have a significant amount of scenic beauty in this community, and we really want to take advantage of this. So this map will identify the locations of these paddle trails. It'll likely identify what is the appropriate beginner, intermediate, or experienced user, and identify which trails they should use. The map will also identify what amenities are necessary to facilitate the navigation of those waterways. The design guidelines will identify what types of facilities are appropriate at those canoe kayak launches, but also what types of facilities are appropriate along the trail. It will also include recommendations for signage along the trail so that people know which type of trail, what trail you're on, how do you get to the next location, things of that nature. Operations and maintenance is a big issue. We do realize that we can't just put these facilities on the ground and they're going to take care of themselves. We have to have a plan in place to operate and maintain these facilities in the future, and so this plan will provide the recommendations for how we maintain these facilities. Programs is a very important element of this plan, and as Amy mentioned, we did travel to a few communities throughout North and South Carolina and discussed their efforts. We brought back a lot of good information on how they're marketing their greenways. Buncombe County, for example, has a slogan, Connect Buncombe. And what they're doing is they've partnered with a local brewer to name a beer after their greenway. They partnered with a local ice cream shop to name an ice cream after their greenway. They have a brewery 5 and 10K run. And so that's one of the things that we've identified as an opportunity to market our trail and bring those ideas back. We created a slogan, Move, Play, Connect. And you'll see it throughout this community as we start to put these facilities on the ground. Move revolves around transportation. How do we move people throughout the community? Play is recreation. and connect is connecting people and places, but then also connecting people socially. You'll hear from, if you go to Buncombe County, and there's a video online, but it demonstrates that sometimes when you build these facilities, people that would typically not interact with each other are now getting out, exercising, and socializing on these facilities, much like what they do at our parks. The plan will include land acquisition and funding strategies. How do we acquire the necessary right-of-way, and how do we put these facilities on the ground? We've been lucky enough with the Gary Shell Cross City Trail to build that facility on gratuitous easements that were provided by the Camerons, the Trask, the McRae's, and UNCW to the tune of about $750,000. That $750,000 was then put into the construction of the Gary Shell Cross City Trail. This plan will provide strategies to acquire the necessary rights of way, and then how to fund those improvements. It will provide a toolbox of grants, capital program improvements, NCDOT, federal highway, and other funding strategies. The plan will include an action or implementation plan that identifies what the recommended actions are, who is the responsible entity for the implementation, and then how do we take this plan from concept to reality. We don't want this plan to just sit on the shelf and collect dust. We want to build on the success that we've had with the Gary Shell Cross City Trail and take this from concept to reality and put these facilities on the ground. And so these implementation strategies will identify how we do that. We will receive a final report and brochure that includes each of those elements in it, and also the brochure will likely include a map that demonstrates the existing and future facilities. As Amy mentioned, we do have a pretty aggressive schedule. We had a kickoff meeting in January. We actually had a kickoff at Halliburton Park on February 15th, in which Mayor Sappho, Chairman Davis, and our consultant came out and kicked off the comprehensive Greenway plan. At that time, we started our public comment period. We've identified our opportunities and constraints. We've had a first round of public workshops. We held one at the City of Wilmington's council chambers, a second in Carolina Beach, and then a third in Ogden Elementary to cover each of the areas of the community that we serve. We do expect a draft document in July. Once we receive that draft document, we'll go out to the community and hold a second round of public workshops. Those will likely happen in late summer or early fall, probably in the September timeframe, in which we'll go back out to the community and get feedback on the locations of these facilities. We'll have a draft final plan in October, and then we plan to go out and present this to the City Council, the County Commissioners, the Town Councils in Wrightsville, Carolina, and Curry Beach in December of this year. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions on either of these plans, and I know you would as well. Yes.
Are you taking comments?
Well, the public comment period for this, we are receiving comments. For the Collector Street plan, the public comment period closed on February 29th.
What does that mean?
What have you done since then?
We have not done anything since then. We presented to the Transportation Advisory Committee and asked them for some direction on how they wanted us to proceed. What the direction we received was that they wanted us to go out to the various areas of the community, which included the South Oleander, the College Acres, and the Sunset Park areas, and provide additional information to those areas. What we're currently doing with those comments that we received is we're reviewing those comments now. As I indicated on one of the slides, we do expect the plan to be modified to reflect some of the comments that we've received to date.
Well, one thing though I think is important, I haven't had any response. No acknowledgement of the comment I sent, none of it was received. Plus, you talk about community outreach. Most of my friends here never hear from you. They're here tonight only because of a blog post
from our
So
neighborhood.
it's a myth if you think you are communicating with us.
Well, we have not made any additional steps moving
There
forward.
wasn't a step from the beginning.
The meeting that had
I mean,
31 people was never announced to the
None of
public.
us knew
None of
that.
us knew anything about that. The meeting that had over 200 in February was because of our neighborhood blog person. There was nothing from the city notifying us of that meeting. It would have been held without us, without notifying everybody. The city's making no effort to notify us of anything. And now you say the comment period is closed. I mean, we all left our emails at that meeting, have never heard anything.
What?
The city has everybody's emails, and there's no notification to us.
I can assure you,
Let me just put something on the table in Mike's defense. Number one, there have been hundreds and hundreds of emails, so staff is looking at all of those. But also, everything came to a halt out of Mike's consideration of my being away. So nothing has happened while I have been gone and recuperating. And we are now getting back to it, and that's the reason that there are going to be public hearings to take additional remarks and to present what is a reaction to all of the public comment that we've had up to that time. So your remarks have been heard, they've been worked into the staff's response and into the changes that will be in the plan, and those will be presented in a neighborhood meeting coming near you. All four of them, but you'll be invited to one.
You really be sure be fair about the meeting.
Absolutely.
Because
This was not meant to be a public meeting.
okay,
This was a meeting of the Cape Fear Economic Development Council. Anyone was invited to come that wanted to, but this was not meant to be a meeting to share exactly what changes have happened. Those meetings will take place in your area of town so that you can focus on exactly what your comments focused on. But there has been a gap. That's because
I know you've been away, but my question is, do you all care what we think? I mean, does it matter what our neighborhood, for example, thinks about these electric streets? Because it was very apparent at the February meeting what we looked at. And my impression from listening to you is you're just showing us a collector streets again as if it's almost a done deal.
no, it is not, it's not a done
Because,
deal.
I mean, I just didn't know whether you listen to neighborhoods or you just press on the plan.
Well, no, it's not a done deal, like Councilwoman Paget said. There has not been any real work done on this effort to date because she did go out on leave. And what we're trying to do, we have been requested to come speak to the Economic Development Council on this effort. I can assure you that we've received your emails. And I can assure you that before our next meeting, when we go out to the neighborhood, we will send an email that has each one of your email addresses attached to it, inviting you to that meeting. And we will, at that meeting, as I mentioned, there's some changes that are coming because of the comments that we received. And at that public meeting that we hold in your neighborhood, we will present that to you.
But what I'm saying is that meeting with so many people in February, you didn't consider that comments, did you? And if we didn't email something to them, did you not take into account how many people turned out opposed to the collector streets? I mean, did that not count for us to all turn out on that?
We did, and we took notes from those meetings. We have the sign-in sheets, and we heard what each of those areas indicated with your concerns.
Mike,
Yes.
when you say emails, just real quick, I'm sorry to interrupt, but there are a lot of people in South Orlando that do not have emails, older individuals. Are y'all going to advertise this? In other words, I got it because of the emails.
Yes.
I also saw it earlier in Wilmington Business Journal, but my point is, I talked to two individuals, my mother including, one of them who don't have email. And the majority of South, not the majority, but a good chunk of South Orlando is a little older and don't, if they do have email, they don't check it as regularly as.
We'll advertise.
I mean, are y'all going to send out mailings, something?
We have not got to how we're going to advertise yet, but we will certainly make the community aware of these meetings.
It may help everyone here if you tell us, okay, what's the next step after you have the neighborhood meeting?
What the next step is, what we'll do is we'll come out and we've taken the comments. We're ciphering through this. We will make changes to the plan based on those comments. We'll come back out to the community, present the recommendations based on the feedback that we got. Then we will take it for consideration at the Wilmington Planning Commission and for the City Council, requesting that they adopt the plan. But I assure you that there'll be additional opportunity to react to us coming back out to the community with our recommendations.
There will be steps after that meeting before, in other words, it has to go from the planning commission to be voted on and the city council to be voted on before they will become set in stone.
Before we could identify those specific locations. Now, I will say that this plan is building upon the 1992 plan that was done. So we recognize that, you know, this effort, there's been a long gap, and we've seen some good collector street networks that have been developed. All you have to do is go over to the Gingerwood area, which is the Costco area, and you can see that collector street network back there and how it's helped to relieve congestion in that neighborhood by providing that connectivity. But we're building on a lot of other efforts that have been undertaken. Yes, sir.
I'm Marty Seidel. I've been in Wilmington since 1972 as a practicing orthopedic surgeon living in College Acres. Your comments about the purpose of collector streets, for example, in College Acres, nothing personal, but they're disingenuous. Okay? The reason is I can get from my house out to the major artery 5 different ways, including I get into college, I get out to College Road, I get out to Eastwood Road, and I can get out to Wrightsville Avenue. We don't have a problem of our residents getting somewhere. You want to do this to relieve traffic off major arteries. And we went through this back in the 70s with the county. We had to hire an attorney, and we had New Center Drive blocked off. We took a piece of ground and we gave it to both neighbors, and we stopped New Center from coming over to our side. It seems like you folks just want to punish our neighborhood and tell us we can get somewhere faster. Nobody has any problems in our neighborhood, and probably not in most of the other neighborhoods, getting anywhere faster. We don't want the traffic off the arteries. A lot of this is bad planning. The staff had all sorts of great ideas since 1972. I've done a lot of meetings with the commissioners over the years and city council, because a lot of pressures from other interests in town didn't do the right things. That's my opinion. I think that you're going to have to tell everybody who EDC is, who the members of that are. I'd like to know who's on that. I think you need to publish that. But I want to know who has a dog in the fight, besides the neighbors. Okay? Now, Greenways are fine, but I remember the fight when we wanted to do one behind Forest Hills Drive. People are very leery about Greenways. I don't want to be charged anymore for the sidewalks or anything else. And I want to make sure that you're not producing an easy avenue for ingress into my community for criminals. We're just thugs. Now, you have to answer that question. You've got to show the data from the other places. We are not going to be Cary. Cary started this many, many years ago. We put it off from the 70s on because everybody that owned land wanted to do their own thing and had the ears of government here. I know that. I ran for county commissioner in 1980. Somewhere what goes on. I think they have a lot of questions to answer. And don't count it as a fait accompli. You've got to listen to everybody. Thank you.
I'm Martha Stein, and I live at the end of Glenmead. And I just want to make sure I understand the process. Because the public comment period has closed, from what you said.
Correct.
The public comments have been received. You're considering those, and you're going to present a draft, which you're going to take to various areas in our communities. Now, our public comment period on that draft, I mean, our next recourse is to go to the council or the planning commission. Am I correct?
What we'll do,
or are we going to be allowed to make more public comment at those meetings, which will again be taken into consideration?
we will receive comment during those meetings.
Okay.
And we'll take that into consideration as we present that to the commission and to the city council. I can tell you with another plan that we did, we were asked to incorporate that into the record. And so what we've done is, we'll take, and based on the comments that we received up until February 29th, we'll cipher through those. We'll prepare the draft based on those comments and the modifications that we've received. We'll go back out, we'll present it to you, we'll allow you to review it and take feedback, and then we'll present it to the planning commission and the city council.
So there won't be another, the draft is the draft.
The draft is the draft.
And you will consider our comments in presenting it.
That's correct.
But the draft won't be revised based on our comments.
We would not expect to revise it, but we would incorporate your comments into the record whenever we present it to the council and the planning commission.
Well, this draft that you're going to put together from our comments and so forth, it doesn't sound like that you have even considered axing this thing. It sounds like that you may revise it, but it's going to happen.
Well, and ultimately it's up to the city council to either adopt or not adopt the plan. What we will do is, we've heard your comments. We're taking those comments under consideration. We'll go back out and present those. And then, based on that, those meetings, we'll present to the planning commission and the council.
Is the draft map online or is it available anywhere?
The previous draft
Yes.
that we
Are
presented
now revising based on the.
are now revising. The previous draft is online.
Is it on your website?
Yes, it is.
Okay, fine.
It's on the front page. If you scroll down to the bottom, there's a couple different planning efforts, and it's on there. The document and the map.
Okay.
I
I'm going to bring my question.
I think we'd all like to know who's pushing this. I mean, why is this come up again? Who's driving this?
What it has developed from the Metropolitan Planning Organization and staff. What we've identified is we hear from the community that there's traffic congestion.
Yeah, but how-
So what we
in our neighborhood,
But it's very costly to make some of those arteries bigger, and we have limited resources in this community and in the state. What we're trying to do is balance the congestion and the interconnectivity.
I have a question about the Greenways.
I understand where you're coming from.
what do you do?
Myself, for 20 years, I've developed our shows, States for States, and I know all about interconnectivity. You can connect every single one of my streets to everything else. So I understand that and understand where you're coming from. That's connecting neighborhoods to neighborhoods. What you're doing on Gillette and White are two completely different things. You're connecting a 4-lane divided straight road through a 2-lane narrow curving residential neighborhood. That is not going to alleviate traffic at all. If anything, it's going to cause more problems. I mean, I understand the interconnectivity. I understand it. I respect it. It's a good deal. I'm just telling you the Gillette one and the Blythe are crucial mistakes in this plan. Because it's not going to alleviate traffic at all. If anything, it's going to cause more traffic accidents.
And like I mentioned, those were two of the areas that we received the highest number of comments. And we are taking those comments under consideration.
As you take those under consideration, would you please also compute the loss of tax revenue as our property values are diminished?
Yes, absolutely.
Our neighborhood is valuable now to a great extent because of our location and our privacy.
With all due respect, when you made your presentation, Mike, you used the term vision continually in that presentation. And, you know, it seems like to me that that's almost a contradiction in terms. It's really more a lack of vision of the situation in the past, and you're trying to rectify by coming in and doing overlays over neighborhoods and wreaking havoc in those neighborhoods by using some textbook, example that you've learned elsewhere. And you take all of this comment against collector streets, which is almost unanimous. How do you deal with that? I mean, how do you take a South Oleander where you've gotten total negative comments? I'm just interested in your thinking, and then walk into a room and act like, looking at the form that you passed out tonight, it's almost impossible for anybody in this room to even fill it out, the way the questions were worded. And I'm just curious as to what is your psyche on that? How are you?
I passed out the forms. They're about the Greenway plan.
Excuse me?
I passed out the forms. The forms are strictly about the Greenway plan,
Right.
not about the collector street plan.
Yeah.
I passed those out.
Right.
They're two separate planning efforts. And I do not want the two to get combined in any way.
Right.
And so
We were just asked to present on both.
we were asked by the EDC to come out and present on both of those efforts. They are two totally separate initiatives. And so please do not connect the two in any way, shape, or form.
Who's the EDC though? Who's on that?
We are not a part of the EDC.
Yeah, you're part of the city.
And
I'm
Mike is
on
part
the
of
board.
yeah,
I'll tell you guys,
he's
post Michael Vick, it shocks me to hear the dog in this fight argument. We have no dog in this fight. We don't have asphalt pavers on our board. We're a group of business members, entrepreneurs who want a smart, sustainable community. We're just local businessmen, and we provide forums. They're all on our website. If you'd like to go to our website, all of our board is on there as well as members. We basically have forums, educational events bi-monthly. We've had things like biofuels. We've had events on these micro angel funds and ways to get capital as a small business. One of our big, what do you call them when you have a political, an initiative or a plank of our group is Smart.
We should have been here in 1970. We got moved city council and the commissioners then had not listened to developers and listened to you guys if you build a place like Harry. Okay? You weren't here, or at least you were smothered. I'm just looking out for my neighborhood. Okay?
But going back to that though, we don't have a dog in the fight. We're here just providing information. We're an educational group. We have these events every other month. Usually they're related to new businesses or things that we're trying to spawn sustainable economics.
Remember that the thing that makes Wilmington attractive, makes families want to live here, and therefore that sustains businesses, is the good quality of the neighborhood. When we saw that map in the beginning tonight, the two maps, one with the dead-end streets and then one with the shooting through, I'm sure that everybody in the room had a different feeling than the question. We saw that, the way we interpreted that map with the dead-end streets is that those were the protected neighborhoods. That's where you have greenways, that's where you have trees and squirrels and kids playing, and where you have all the streets cutting through there, it's like urban renewal in the 60s, it destroyed places. It's the opposite plan. It's planning for cars rather than for people in neighborhoods.
You can say that, but also just I mean, I am not necessarily a new urbanist. We had a two-day forum that everybody was invited to. We publicized it a lot with the president of the Council of New Urbanists last year, who is definitely an advocate of complete streets. He came here, we had public work sessions with council, county members, Department of Transportation. And basically, what are everybody's favorite cities? Places like Charleston, places like Washington, D.C., places like Manhattan, San Francisco. They're grids, they have connectivity, there is some logic to this. And everybody would agree traffic is a big issue here. And what is the answer? Is the answer pushing people to Brunswick County, pushing people to Hampstead? My question, which is more of a big picture issue, you guys didn't mention Wave. Is Wave a partner in this? Because the whole idea of transportation and traffic problems is people have to use cars because there are no alternatives at all. We have these little airport buses, everything has bike racks on it. I had an office downtown for 6 years and almost saw no one use bike racks with the Wave buses and their airport buses.
But look, there is a simple way to control the traffic that costs nothing, okay?
Look what they do in places like Mexico City when it gets bad enough. They simply say, everybody who has odd number license plate can drive their car on unlimited line.
That doesn't work whatsoever.
Yeah, I lived in New York City. Odd parking stinks. Someone driving my car.
I just wanted to finish my comment about overlaying these ideas on existing neighborhoods. And you mentioned the Cameron and Trask families. Why don't you take these new urban ideas and overlay them on all this undeveloped Cameron and Trask land and carry out your exercise through that land?
Well, some of the recommendations for this in these areas do overlay over undeveloped land and undeveloped property.
But I'm sure it's going to work to their benefit to have these plans paid for by the city for their property, but don't bring them into our neighborhoods.
And this provides a guide. It's not, I'm going to tell you, this provides a guide for the locations of these facilities and what these facilities, if we overlay, if we repave, what these facilities may look like. It's not something that's going to happen overnight. It's something that's a long-term vision.
Excuse me, you come that Collector Street, you come
Yeah,
that Greenway.
Collector Streets.
There's a property coming from the Greenways. I've just been sitting here trying to picture undeveloped land if we could, and rightful region. I don't see it. I mean, that's got to come from somebody's private property.
What we would look at is we'd look at easements, we'd look at rights of way. We'll have a map that identifies these locations for these Greenway facilities.
No, he does not. We use a willing seller approach with our greenways. As Mike said in the presentation, all of the easements that have been acquired for the Cross City Trail have been gratuitous. We have enjoyed wonderful partnerships with the McCrae's, the Trasks, the Camerons, and the CW. The most recent easement that we received was from the Trasks to continue the Cross City Trail through Autumn Hall. We do not use an eminent domain approach.
But those areas, I think you're talking about, weren't developed. Are you talking about?
Autumn Hall is the only pre-developed area that has gone through. Everything else has been post-development.
I want to ask a question, and this changes the subject just briefly, about the Greenway and your bike path. I looked at, I have a bike, but I hadn't dared to get out on it because I noticed that the places where I want to go have dangerous intersections. And I'm terrified to have to go across those intersections. So, for example, if I leave South Orlando and I go up to Independence Boulevard, and then I want to go over to the extension of Independence, to the other side toward the park, I've got to cross the most dangerous intersection in the whole world. So I don't dare to do it. Also, I'd like to ride my bike over to the Cameron Museum. But then I've got to cross Shipyard. Not only that, but I've got to ride on the street because there's no continuation of the bike path.
Yes, ma'am. A lot of people wonder how we've constructed and why we've constructed the Cross City Trail the way we've done to date. And there's a lot of different factors that go into that, land acquisition, engineering, etc. We received 2 very large grants to construct the primary portions of what have been done to date that had very aggressive deadlines attached to them. So basically we started with the easiest chunks that we could do first, and now we're left with the more complex pieces, most of which include those intersections which require permitting, extra review by DOT. So now that we're done with those easy pieces, we have turned our attention towards those intersections. We most recently completed the upgrades at the Eastwood Road Military Cutoff intersection, which was probably right up there with the 2 that you mentioned that were dangerous, and were prohibiting people from enjoying the entirety of the trail because they couldn't cross. I wouldn't have crossed it. We just completed that in May. That included a painted crosswalk, pedestrian refuge islands, and the push-button activated countdown signals so that traffic stops. You don't have much time now to get across. In July, we will begin the Park and Independence intersection that you mentioned, which took a lot longer to get approval than we wanted, but we're building it with federal dollars, and we had to go through many layers of approval. But we have gone out to bid, we've awarded that contract, and that will start in July with the same types of amenities that I just discussed at Military and Eastwood, Military Cutoff in Eastwood, and Shipyard and Independence. That design is complete, that's permitted and funded, and we're in the final negotiation stages of an easement from the Camerons to get that done, so you'll see that when we go later this summer. So we're very cognizant of that. I'm personally very aware of it. I'm a 6-year-old, and I wouldn't cross those intersections with him, even though we use the trail. So we know it's an important component, and it's a gap, but we're addressing it.
And let me make a suggestion. I think where you deal with public people who, with citizens of this community who want to know these things, it would be advisable to take the PR staff from the city and contact the Star News and have them run articles to that effect. Because we're asking those questions, we may not have this opportunity, and it caused some consternation.
Or
And you see everybody fighting about the collector streets, and what I see is you're already making these other plans before you finish another project, the first one. You know, so let's finish one thing before we go on to something else.
Well, we have finished the plan for the crossing trail, we just haven't acquired all the funding to implement it.
But from a perspective, from our perspective, it doesn't look like that. Like from a person who doesn't know the steps that are in your head and on paper in your office, it seems like we're doing something else and you haven't even finished this other piece. I can't write it.
No, that's a good point.
You know, just making it aware that this is going, this is coming. And I even actually just today was looking on the website, I'm like, this is where it's connected to the law. And that would have been, you know, if I'd known that these goals were coming for some of those.
Were you on Crossing Trail? We have crossingtrail.com that we try and keep updated, and the Starbucks has actually been a pretty good partner. They ran a story about check out. I know the Parking Independence has been my reporter question, but to the extent, I agree with you 100% that the more we can get the word out, the better.
And I will not monopolize your time, but I want to ask one other question. Sure. Are there any plans in the city or the county, well, it would have to be in the city, for beautifying the entrance into Wilmington, going across the bridge, or maybe even widening sidewalks along Dawson Street or you know, the entrance and exits to the town? I would put a divider down Oleander all the way to Wrightsville Beach. And I'm sure the people in this community have been to beautiful cities where they put dividers down highways. People slow down. They don't have, this does not have to be a racetrack in this town. And I think some of the things you're proposing may just turn us into that.
Well, I've seen that in other places too, and I agree with the aesthetics of it. One thing that you have to consider is that does increase maintenance operations, so there is a price tag that comes with that, but I think part of it is developing partnerships. I know that Mike is working with the Cape Fear Garden Club on improving a couple of the gateways into the city, and they've stepped up and have wanted to play a role in that.
Yeah, we've actually worked, and you'll see some improvements, actually North 3rd Street, which is a gateway into this community, into downtown. We're working on that effort. We do expect that to be complete by the end of the year. Also out at Martin Luther King Jr. Parkway in College, where some people call it the sailboat, where the Welcome to Wilmington sign is. There's some beautification efforts that are underway out there, which we're working with the Cape Fear Garden Club. They've already expressed an interest in partnering on some other projects. So we are looking to improve and enhance the gateways into downtown. There's also a project across the river at the Battleship and on the west side of the Cape Fear Memorial to improve that area with some beautification. So we are thinking on how do we improve these gateways into the community.
One thing I'd like to mention, and I won't say another word. I'm a minority. I'm a native. I've been here. I've seen South College Road, and it was cut through. I remember when Carolina Beach Road was a 2-lane road all the way to Carolina Beach. You're talking about traffic problems. I've seen the traffic coming in off 40. South College Road has major traffic problems. Right there at Oleander and College Road. Market Street, where it narrows, still has traffic problems. Up in up and down certain areas. Military Cutoff has traffic problems, but our neighborhood doesn't have a traffic problem. And where these traffic problems are, cutting through is not going to alleviate any of that. And I'm still yet to hear you say that this project could be axed or done away with and forgotten. Every time you say we're going to review it and our plans whenever we present it, but nothing has been said where we may just wipe it off the slate.
Well, I can tell you that we presented to the Transportation Advisory Committee and asked them for some direction on how they wanted us to proceed. They recognized that we need to update the Collector Street plan that they developed, that was developed in '92, and have directed us on how to proceed. Now, if the Transportation Advisory Committee decides that they want us to access, then they would direct staff to do that. If there is a possibility that it won't be adopted, that the City Council or Transportation Advisory Committee would not adopt it, and therefore it would be essentially done away with. But from a staff perspective and the direction that I've gotten from my board is to continue to move forward on this and to go out to the community and have these additional meetings once we have developed the draft plan based on the feedback we received.
Would you mind telling us who's on the Transportation Advisory Committee? I know our Patty is. Would you tell us the other 3 men on that?
There's a 13-member board, and it's actually on our website at www.wmpo.org.
But isn't Berger on this committee somewhere?
Commissioner Berger's on it. Commissioner
Got from Curie Beach, all of them go up down Gillette. The guy from Curie Beach is on it, he's been up down Gillette 100 times with that.
Yes.
Just one thing that would help me with looking at these maps, just everything going on right now, is if I would make sure, I saw some of them that had the city limits marked. I actually would like to see the city limits on the Greenway plan, because it's a partnership, and it just, to me, I'd like to know what I'm paying. I don't want to be negative, but what I'm paying double for, and make sure that we're addressing.
Can you put that on that comment?
I wrote my notes on this one.
I get you another.
May I close?
Yes, sir.
Everything that we talked about tonight, everybody that's for or against it, it doesn't matter. Our taxes are going up without any of these things. And this is a bad time for the entire country. And you ought to be sitting around doing nothing for a while so that we can recover and let you do something.
What is the funding plan for this, if you happen to manage to get it through?
Which one?
Both of them. Either the collector streets.
Well, the Collector Street plan, as you noticed, as I mentioned, it's not fiscally constrained. What would happen is if, a development were to come in and the location of this facility were to be within that development, then the burden would be on the developer to build that facility.
How are you going to pay to extend all the things to Gillette that you need to do, assuming that you, where's that money going?
Ma'am, there is no funding strategy for the implementation of the Collector Street plan. At this time, it's a long-term vision for if, long-term, we see these possibilities for these future collector streets, but right now there's no funding strategy. As far as the Greenway plan, there'll be a funding strategy identified as part of that effort and implementation strategy in order to take that project from concept.
It could be taxes, it could also be grants, it could be corporate sponsorships. I'll say with the Cross-City Trail, less than 25% of the Cross-City Trail has been built with local tax dollars. We've been really fortunate in leveraging. It started with the 2006 Parks and Green Space Bond, which was voted on by the public, and we were able to leverage that money to get a lot of grants. So there hasn't been a whole lot of local property taxes.
Is the put on roads?
I missed the beginning.
I understand a lot of runners are very upset about it. Being they're going to be charged for registered racing. Is that something like
that was part of an overall expansion of recreation fees. Other examples include additional per participant fees for tennis tournaments or softball tournaments. And that was done in an effort to be more sustainable and try and spread the tax burden solely from the property taxpayer to the people who are actually using.
Why the runners are they're paid. Races, they pay the police, they pay the fire. Now, every runner who runs a race in this county is going to have to pay a fee, a tax. Well, it matters to these people.
But and I met with a lot of the race directors that, and I'm an athlete, so I, paid all my share of registration fees, but the intention was for the race directors not to absorb that in their budget, but say they were going to charge $25, right, it would cost them $6 again, in an effort just to look towards the future and try and plan long term and be more sustainable as we build these greenways and trails. They need repair, not to always rely on property taxpayers to do that, but to build a pot of money from people who are directly using these. So for the tennis complex, the people who play in these tennis tournaments, when we need to resurface the courts, we don't always have to look to the city's capital improvements program. We're hopefully accumulating a pot of money to pay directly from the future. So that's the philosophy behind that.
I'd like to thank everyone for coming. I'd like to welcome anyone to stay that wants to continue the conversation. Certainly don't want to run anyone out. Does anybody have surveys on the